What's going on, guys? This is the Leafs Convo podcast for Vanguard Northeast Realty in Scarborough. VanguardNE.ca. I'm Norman James along with Mike Jello. We're on the eve of the Leafs and Bruins Game 7 because the Leafs at home could not put it all together and finish this thing off. A 4-2 loser to the Mighty Bees. And we head back to Massachusetts for the final game, the decider. Michael, how are you feeling about everything?
Good morning, Norman. Since when I picked this series, I selected Boston to win it. I'm feeling sort of gratified in the sense that I think I'm right, but a Game 7 is always a coin flip. But honestly, looking at it objectively, the Leafs, if they end up losing this series or if just extending it to 7 games, they have nobody to blame but themselves because they've had opportunities in this series to take control. In Game 2, when they stole the first game in Boston, they had a chance to take a 2-0 lead, and they were outworked by a veteran Bruins team. In Game 4 at home, they had a chance to take a 3-1 lead, and they came up small on home ice. And in Game 6, I'm sorry, all the pressure was on the Bruins. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the way that the two teams played, in spite of the fact that Morgan Rielly got the opening goal, after that, it was domination by the Bruins from that goal until probably early third period when Austin Matthews scored. It was not a good effort from a team that should have been playing a little more loose than the Bruins, but the Bruins are experienced and the Leafs have the problems that we've seen all year. And now they go to a Game 7, and nobody wanted to hear the 4 words, Game 7 in Boston, but you're going to hear them tomorrow.
What are the odds the Bruins beat the Leafs in a Game 7 for a third time? 2013, 2018, 2019. What are the odds they're able to do that and complete the trifecta? The odds are pretty great against them, but what are the odds the Leafs win 3 games in this series in Massachusetts? The odds are pretty great in that circumstance, too. What bothers me about Game 6, Mike, the Leafs score halfway into the first period, get some momentum, and then they give up 2 goals. Now, I know they were power play goals, and fans are upset because the officials are not helping the Leafs along this process. But you score at 9:42 of the first, and then you give up 2 goals, and you're trailing after the first period's done. Is this, like, Mike, is it psychological? I don't understand how you can't build off of that momentum.
Well, the problem is if you're looking for the officials to help you, this is the wrong team to be rooting for because they didn't draw penalties at all this year. Because, and there's differing opinions as to why. Do they not go into the danger areas? Maybe they're not an overly physical team, but they simply did not draw penalties. They were second worst in the league in terms of power play opportunities. But when they get those power play opportunities, they have to seize on them. And yesterday, they didn't. And, of course, Boston, and I believe Boston's success rate on the power play through 6 games is over 50%. That's like Edmonton Oilers bad. That's inexcusable. And Babcock had no excuse after the game other than, well, we're going to change things around and we're going to do something and we're going to stop them from scoring on the power play. Well, there's evidence to the contrary because you haven't been able to stop them yet.
The Bruins have 7 goals on 16 opportunities.
Yeah, a little under 50.
On the power play. That's still pretty good. I mean, that's amazing. And that's what you have to do in a compressed, tightly packed series. The Leafs are 3 for 14 on the power play. So whatever happened to the power play toughness, Mike?
That was a line that I think Mike Babcock, if he could take it back, he would, because everybody is going to reference that. I mean, it's ridiculous because as you see in these playoffs, in this series and in other series, where Alex Ovechkin lays out big checks, where Zdeno Chara pancakes Mitch Marner at the beginning of Game 4, and it changes the tone of that entire game. And as I said to you before we started recording, Mitch Marner, as great as he is, and John Tavares, as great as he's been this season, they have not been a factor since the beginning of Game 4.
They have their hands full with that Bergeron, Pasternak, Marchand line, and they did lead all forwards in ice time, over 21 minutes of ice time yesterday. So they're busting their ass out there. Marner's had some issues. Tavares has had plenty of chances, not to make excuses for them, but I am saying that they are in the mix and they are giving it as much as they possibly can. I don't know if they're out of gas or if they just have their hands full with such a effective line in Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak. And man, those guys came to play again. And that's another thing that really bothers me. Is your season dependent upon somehow shutting these dudes down? Is this line, are these three cats going to take you out again? Because it's setting up to be that way, and that's what drives me incredibly insane when it comes to the Maple Leafs in this process, this pattern, this history repeating itself. Now, some will say that history is not exactly repeating itself, and you have an argument there, Mike. These teams have alternated wins and losses throughout this series. So if you're following the pattern of win-loss, the Maple Leafs should win Game 7 Tuesday evening in Boston, Massachusetts. The question is, are they going to put themselves in a position to go ahead and actually close the deal here, Mike? This is the Leafs Convo podcast for Vanguard Northeast Realty in Scarborough, VanguardNE.ca. Morgan Rielly, almost 26 minutes of ice time. He was everywhere. That guy was playing like a school on fire, just reckless abandon. 6 shots on goal. He got the first goal of the game. 3 hits, 3 blocks. He gave the puck away. He took the puck away. That's what I want to see. But by contrast, Mike, when you look at the Leafs or when you look at the Bruins defense, Charlie McAvoy, 24 minutes of ice. Zdeno Chara, the guy's 102 years old, 22 and a half minutes of ice time. Brandon Carlo, 23 minutes, 41 seconds of ice time. All of their defensemen are playing, at least the top 3-4 defensemen of their defense corps are playing plenty of minutes. They're playing a lot. Morgan Rielly's doing all the work on the Leafs blue line, and it's not because the rest of the guys are sieves, but you're running your top guy out there as much as you possibly can. He's going to be gassed. Whereas the Bruins defense, they've got enough guys who can carry the load, Mike, and that's concerning for me.
Well, I mean, it's concerning for anybody who has been an observer of this team. But as we've said, their Achilles heel was their defense, and they did get Jake Muzzin, and I think Muzzin has played pretty well. But when you're depending on Nikita Zaitsev for 20 plus minutes, and you're loading 26 minutes on Morgan Rielly and over 20 minutes on a 38-year-old Ron Hainsey, we knew going into this series the Bruins had the advantage in terms of their blue line. And that's been, I think there are greater problems overall than just the depth on defense with this team. But I think that it always comes back to that. And in a Game 7 scenario, Riley's probably going to play close to 30 minutes because they need him to be, and he didn't get nominated for one of the 3 nominations for the Norris, but he played at a Norris Trophy caliber level this year with, I think, 71 points. They're going to need to overplay him in Game 7 because he's their best, and they're going to need him.
Is that because he doesn't have a Brent Burns beard? He doesn't do enough chip commercials. Again, these awards, whatever. Comment on that, Mike, and then we'll move on.
Well, the way that these awards occur, a player develops a reputation in a number of years where he probably should be nominated, and then once he gets nominated, he has a couple years after that where he probably shouldn't be nominated, but he gets it on reputation. This is his first great year, and he gets beaten out for the top 3 from Hedman, Burns, and Giordano. But I still think he deserved it. And, as watching this guy all 82 games, he's been one of the best defensemen in the league. But, that takes a backseat to what's going on right now, which is this series. And I think he's been their best defenseman. But the problem is that if you look at the top 6 blue line that they have, Gardner is clearly playing hampered and not even close to 100%. They're playing Dermott more in certain games later in the series because he's young and I think offensively he pushes the puck. But they're relying on Muzzin and Zaitsev as their shutdown matchup pair against Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak. And one half of that is pretty good. And I'm not beating up on Nikita Zaitsev, but Nikita Zaitsev should not be a shutdown pair in a playoff scenario. That was the guy that they needed to get before the deadline. They didn't get it, and it may end up costing them the
Patrice
series.
Bergeron, for me, is perfect for playoff hockey. and I'm not telling tales out of school here, brother. That guy's he's so impressive. And I know we have Bruins fans who listen to the podcast. Thanks and welcome. We welcome all. You're so lucky to have a guy like that. He just quietly goes about his business. And Mike, you said it. Besides Sidney Crosby, who's no longer in the playoffs, at least this year, Patrice Bergeron has been pretty much the most money postseason performer of this generation. I have to tip my hat to the guy. I hope he and the Bruins are balling in their sweaty towels at the end of Game 7, having lost to the Leafs. But man, oh man, Tavares, Marner, Hyman, that these guys have their effing work cut out dealing with that top line. And while Pasternak and Marchand are wild and crazy and get all the headlines and get all the camera spotlight, it's Patrice Bergeron who is the general, the captain. He's doing the true damage out there. And man, oh man, the Leafs have had their hands full with that guy. So it's almost difficult. It's difficult to start pointing the finger at people and complaining that they can't contain this guy or overcome this guy, because no one's really been able to for years and years.
No, you're right, and I use this in the most positive sense, in terms of him being a Bruin. He's an assassin in the playoffs. He kills teams. He does. He's 33 years old. He's not a brilliant offensive player, but he just positionally he's sound. He's a great face-off guy. He works on the power play. He kills penalties when needs be. I mean, he's just an all-around one of the best two-way players, and he's a Hall of Famer.
Sure.
So, but honestly, the Leafs, they've been able to at times shut down that line. That's what they're going to have to do. We'll talk about this tomorrow when we do the pregame. But yeah, the guy who killed them yesterday is the one who has the beak like a toucan. It's Marchand. He's just a guy who's in the right place at the right time and has ice in his veins and just wins and just scores goals. And the Leafs need somebody, and Austin Matthews has stepped up in the last 3 games or 3 or 4 games to do that, but they need other players besides Austin Matthews in this Game 7 scenario. They cannot rely on just their star 2 players and Morgan Rielly to carry the ball. They need everybody. And yesterday, as we mentioned, a certain guy playing center on the third line blew an opportunity in the game, late in the game, that even people who like him were critical of him.
Really? Usually William Nylander is facilitated with a warm bath and a book and some candles, because that's the way we have to deal with William Nylander. Kid gloves, warmth, hugs. Everyone else is criticized. But no, not Nylander. No, his line mates are not at his caliber, so it's their fault. No, it's Mike Babcock's fault. It's never William Nylander's fault. Now, the thing about him, Mike, is that the guy revs his engine and he shows signs, especially at center, that, man, this guy can control a play. This guy can rush the puck. His offensive zone entries are terrific, but you can't just dump the puck and curl back or avoid hits. You have to continue. You can't just get your stat because you crossed the blue line. I know a lot of guys go nuts over that, and we know a lot of fans aren't interested in team wins. They're interested in their player. And that is evident in the way they defend their guy and tear down his teammates. William Nylander has to take the next step over, Mike. He has to go the next step. And I don't know if that's going to be possible. If the Leafs get through this series and go through into the Columbus situation, you're going to have Nazem Kadri come back into the mix. And I know some people want to kick him off a cliff on behalf of William Nylander getting more ice time. But Kadri is going to have to come back into the lineup. Now, beyond that, Mike, if the Leafs lose tomorrow, I'm still putting money down that that's his last game as a Maple Leaf. So I don't want it to rip on the guy too much.
I had somebody text me after the first goal and about with my lengthy complaints about Nylander, about him curling at the faceoff circle, and that's what he did on the Rielly goal, and then he dished it to Rielly and Rielly scored. And it's like, okay, great, but every once in a while you have to drive the net. Every once in a while you've got to sort of pay the price to get an offensive chance. There were a couple times when he circled behind the net and he found, Connor Brown was in front of the net and he passed it into his skates. It's but the play that everybody is talking about is or he's cruising through the slot and Trevor Moore finds him and he's skating around like he's in a dream world. This is the playoffs. And honestly, this could be the worst $10 million that any organization has spent. I'm not saying he's not a talented player. I'm not saying he was responsible in of himself for the loss, but you need players to concentrate and rev up themselves and provide energy in a game 6 scenario where you have a chance to move on. And I didn't see a lot of energy from William Nylander.
That pass was Trevor Moore's fault because William Nylander wasn't ready. Austin Matthews is ready to win the series and move on and start marching towards a championship, Mike. You have to give this cat credit. Number 34 has risen to the occasion. He wants to be out on the ice a lot, 20 plus minutes of ice time in game 6, 5 goals in the series. He's been spectacular. But can he get 6 and 7 in this series? Because the Leafs are going to require that in game 7. He's already gone to an upper echelon, to an elite level. But they'll need him to go even higher. Is that even possible in this 7th and deciding game, Mike? Final points to you.
Well, I mean, they'll need him to contribute like he has been. But I think in the end, unless it's a 1-goal game, like a 1-0 game, it's going to be up to the entire team. It's not going to be just Austin Matthews carrying this team on their back. There have been too many instances over the years where the Leafs have depended on their goaltending to carry them, or one player like Matt Sundin or Dougie Gilmour. You need everybody to buy in. And if you see the Bruins, it's not just Bergeron and Marchand. It's Noel Acciari. It's Sean Corrali. It's John Moore. It's everybody. And that's what the Leafs need. If you don't get contributions from everybody, and Babcock says this over and over, you're not going to win. And that's what they need. They need everybody to buy in and everybody to put it on the line in Game 7. And if they don't do it, then I'll be at locker clean out on Wednesday or Thursday.
Hey, I want success because Leaf success brings Leafs Convo success. And I'm really enjoying this run that we're on, all the new friends we're making on the podcast platform. I want to continue this. 24 shots for the Maple Leafs in Game 6, 48% on the faceoff dot, 0 for 3 on the power play. That tells the tale, Mike. They don't start with the puck. They didn't get enough shots. 0 for 3 on the power play, 3 for 14 in the series. Boston 7 for 16. When we look back on a Leafs playoff loss to the Bruins again, and these are the numbers that stick out to us, I'm not sure where else we can go. We can point the finger at Mike Babcock. We can point the finger at William Nylander. We can point the finger at Marner and Tavares not producing. But collectively, these numbers belong to everyone. Now, that said, here we are going into Game 7. These teams have traded wins and losses throughout. It's the Leafs' time. And can Boston beat the Leafs a 3rd series in a row at home? Can they do it again? What are the odds of that? Game 7 awaits us. Let's just head down, full throttle, embrace it, see what happens, and who knows? The season might just continue after all. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Norman.
We would like to thank Vanguard Northeast Realty in Scarborough, title sponsor of the Leafs Convo, demonstrating passion for the industry and a superior level of excellence in selling, leasing, and marketing your property. Vanguard Northeast Realty.